Damn, I am really satisfied with today's session. I came in here, it was a midnight session, came at 12 a.m. I didn't quite manage to get any of my exercise done beforehand because I was a bit busy and I just like messed up my time management. But when I came, there was no one in the gym. So I had the whole gym to myself. I had a lot of freedom. I could do whatever I want without any consideration of what other people would think. I had the music to myself, and it was the ideal environment to do calisthenics. So, not surprisingly, this session was also really good. Today I did planche and front lever together, and my planche holds felt amazing. The straddle holds, I was like ensuring full protraction. Like the form was something I was satisfied with, and it had a quite long duration. I feel like at this point, the only inhibitor is me holding my breath. So to ensure that I'm constantly tense and keeping everything in the ideal position, I normally hold my breath and then do the form. And then do the straddle planche hold. But what happens is I actually run out of breath and I have to hold, I like breathe out, and that loses all tension, and that's the main reason why I can't go any longer on the straddle planche. I know that with the half lace straddle, I can do it while like breathing in and out, and that's not too much of a concern. But again, there is certainly that aspect of protraction of the scapula that is demanded. Now, essentially, the reason why why I'm splitting this up into a 10-minute long video session and just highlights is because there's a lot I want to talk about. I know that I don't really want to go through a lot of like analysis. Initially, in like my original planche journey, I was like always contemplating, I was always questioning certain aspects. It was almost as if I like had this over analyzed or like a mindset that goes into specificity to one thing that is completely irrelevant, and it just like completely denies the whole integrity of the session. So that in that case, it may be something like, I guess more like, I was eating some food and like some diet, and I assume that due to a certain trend, that's a significant impact to my training. Especially with calisthenics, diet doesn't seem to be too much of an issue. And with that in mind, another thing I could say is like, in my warm-up, I did 3 pseudo planche push-ups, and that was the most ideal, and that happened on the day where I had my best holds. That doesn't mean that doing 3 pseudo planche push-ups every single session is going to make all your sessions the perfect performance. That's the kind of over-analysis that I've realized, I've come to terms with, is not ideal and isn't really practical. So, why am I making this video so long? It's because I wanted to just go through and reflect on my experience. Rather than analyzing what was going on, I just want to evaluate what my feelings were. How did my body feel? How did these training sessions, or like how did these exercises, while I was like alternating between push and pull, how did that feel for my body? And this was one of the few sessions where I did do front levers and planche. I didn't have a very standard or like a strict workout to work off. The only reason why I did this was because yesterday I didn't manage to do my planche training, and today was meant to be front lever. So that means that I rested 2 days since my last planche session, and a few more days for my front lever. That could probably suggest that I was a lot more recovered, I was strong, and I had no fatigue in my system, and thus I was able to perform very adequately. Or it may be that some other issues, like maybe it was just that one session that I just peaked suddenly, and there's no explanation whatsoever to, I guess, to justify it. Now, that is something I found a lot rather frustrating over, like, way earlier in my introductory phases, but over time I've come to just accept it. Just go with the flow, just understand just like go with how your body feels. You don't really know what's gonna happen. You can't predict or control how your body's gonna feel, so you just gotta cop it. Like, just go with what the external performance is like. So doing this with the planche and front lever together, it seemed like there wasn't too much of a overlap with like the back engagement and the fatigue between sets. I actually felt pretty good between my dynamic dynamic front lever negatives, and alternating that between that and the dynamic planche, L sit to planche holds. Those ones, even though there was some form of like back engagement that was demanded for both exercises, it generally didn't seem to overlap too much. Compared to having a front lever session right before a planche session, so the day before, it seems like having it like that seems to fatigue me a lot more, because I get a lot more like, I guess, muscle soreness in the lats, and therefore I'm not better able to ensure the stimulus and engagement for the planche. But having it in the same session, that doesn't seem to be too much of a problem, because I'm not going to the extent of pre-exhausting that muscle group. Rather, it's more like it's engaged, and because of that engagement, it's almost as if it's warming it up for the planche session. So the front lever works on the retraction of my scapula, and then the lats work the protraction for the planche. So either way, there is some overlap, but it just seems to be very effective. Now, this does make me question whether I want to start doing planche and front lever in the same day. I feel like it requires a lot more freedom in the gym as well. Today was an exception because I came to the gym at midnight, so there was no one here. I had complete freedom to all the equipment I wanted. I could use a lot of space, and that was the most ideal thing. So in the future, if I do want to do the same thing, then I'll probably have to go later at night or like very early in the morning, which I guess, depending on my schedule, it will be rather versatile. Training like an established training time is probably more ideal. But again, like, I'm open to this kind of experimenting, and yeah, it's just, it doesn't seem like a coincidence that on this day, where I had a 2-day recovery and I did both skills on the same day, that I performed the best in these sessions. So for me to try and like simplify this complicated scheme and just come to a clear conclusion, I honestly feel like I'm just running in circles. Like, I go back to the same thing over and over again. And when I evaluate my progression, so like the line of how I progress, I'm almost 99% certain about this. It's if you have a progressive moment, so like 1 week or 1 to 2 weeks of just like pure progression, you're just rapidly increasing your holds. You're going from like a straddle planche straight to front, like a full planche. Like, if that's the case, you're probably going to drop down to a regressive phase, or it's going to plateau. You will have some regression, and then all of a sudden, it's going to cycle all the way back up into that full progression. It's truly confusing, and in a very macroscopic perspective, that seems to be the most prominent kind of cycle. I can't explain why this is the case. I guess we could say something like your tendons and your muscles adapt to like stimulus, and they strengthen themselves at different rates. The tendons being a lot slower, and therefore the adaptability of your muscles is slowly getting, your tendons are slowly trying to catch up to that. So therefore there is that clear disparity in strength and all of that. But there's another point saying that once you provide the stimulus to your muscles, you're going to have a regressive phase because they are recovering. But then once you fully recover, you peak up to a higher baseline of strength. If that's the case, then it helps out and it does make a bit of sense. However, if you try and like extrapolate this to like a very large scale, to like months or weeks, that just doesn't seem to satisfy my questioning, and just like the frustration and understanding reconciling why these cycles occur. I came into this planche journey because I wanted to experience, reflect on what was going on in my mind, and ultimately I want to reconcile why this is the case. Why do we have all these cycles? Why is it so it's so complicated but so methodical in its cycles? Like, it's almost as if I can calculate it to an extent. And despite how complex the planche is, there is that small chance of finding some proper, adequate, like practical way of um, I guess, just finding that clear estimate of what your progression is going to be like. And that's what truly confuses me but makes planche all the more intriguing. So yeah, that's basically it, and I'll finish it off here.